Welcome back to science. Last week we studied how fossils form. This week we're going to study how sedimentary rock forms. To do that, we're going to observe some rock samples. I'll show you a model of a sedimentary rock layer, and in our next lesson we'll be writing an argument text. First, let's take a look at this map of the United States. I know that New York City is right over here. The yellow represents volcanic rock, mostly on the west coast, but there's some over here. All of the white represents sedimentary rock. The bluish gray represents other rock, and the triangle represents a volcano. So all the volcanoes in the United States are on the west coast. That's actually called the Ring of Fire. So we have a question here. Where do you think fossils are most likely to be found? Well, I remember from our lessons last week that in order for a fossil to form, it has to be covered with sediment. So my guess is that it's going to be in the sedimentary rock, which is all of these white spaces. Let's see if we're right. Yes, sedimentary rock is where fossils will be found. Sedimentary rock is a type of rock formed from sediment that compacts and cements over time. Let's read a little bit from this text to learn more. This says that these fossils right here come from organisms that were trapped in sediment at the bottom of a shallow ocean. The sediment turned into sedimentary rock, and the organisms turned into fossils. Fossils are usually found in a certain type of rock, sedimentary rock. To understand fossils, we need to look at how sedimentary rock forms from sediment. Sediment is made up of sand, mud, and tiny bits of rock. When organisms die, sometimes their bodies can become trapped in sediment. Now I see numbers here. That tells me it's chronological order. It's going to tell me step 1, step 2, step 3. So step 1 says that sediment has to sink through water and builds up on the bottom of lakes, rivers, oceans, and other watery environments. Okay, so this doesn't happen on dry land. It has to happen in water. Over time, more and more sediment builds up and pushes down on the sediment below it. The sediment at the bottom starts to compact or press together. So compact means press together. As the sediment compacts, all the tiny bits of sand and rock begin to cement or stick to one another. So cement means to stick together in the process of forming rocks. Now step 3 says the sediment compacts and cements to form a large flat layer of sedimentary rock. Over many years, that layer gets thicker as more sediment compacts and cements. You can't see sedimentary rock forming because it takes a very, very long time. It takes much longer for a rock layer to form than you've been alive. In fact, it takes much longer than even the oldest person you know has been alive. Because it takes so long, and I mean thousands or millions of years, we obviously can't watch this process happening. But we are going to use a model or our simulation to observe and better understand this process. So I'm going to go to the sim, and without changing the sea level, I'm going to move time forward to observe rock forming and how it forms. And while I'm doing that, I want to think, what do we observe about how rocks form? So let's go to the simulation, and we're going to move time forward. Okay, I'm noticing that sediment is flowing through these two environments, not in the upper river. It's flowing out of that one, and it's flowing into these two environments. Oh, and look, here we have a rock layer forming on the bottom of the floodplain and of the beach. Let's move time again. Okay, and over time, over thousands of years, the sediment is being compacted and cemented together, and it's forming a rock layer at the bottom. Very cool. So it seems like sand and dirt and all of this other type of sediment can actually turn into rock once they get kind of glued together at the bottom. Okay, and now we have a huge rock layer. Very cool. Now, I'm so sorry. In class, we were going to do this really cool experiment. We were going to all build these models together. I'm so sorry, but I will at least show you what we would have done. I have pictures, even though we can't do the actual experiment. Okay, so we know that a rock layer is a thick sheet of rock formed from the same material. And we're going to look at pictures of what this model would have looked like. So I was going to give you guys gravel, sand, and then a plaster water mixture. And we're going to make models that show how a sedimentary rock layer forms using cups with gravel, sand, plaster water mixture, small clear cups, and spoons. Now, we learned from the text that we just read that we have to mix water and sediment. And then as it mixes, the sediment sinks to the bottom of the cup. Then we were going to put plaster water in the models. So in this model, the rock will harden overnight because of the plaster water that we put in. But in real life, it takes thousands or millions of years for sediment to become rock. Okay, and then we were going to think, what could we do with our class model to show the step that the rock layer gets thicker over time? Well, I think that we could add more sediment, just like we saw in the simulation. So to be able to compare the thickness of the original layer, this is what it would have looked like in class, and the thicker layer, we're going to draw lines at the top of each layer and record the date. So we did this first one, we'll put a date, and then on another day, we were going to add to our model so that we could see that it gets thicker over time. So more and more sediment continues to build up as sedimentary rock forms. When this happens over long periods of time, the rock layer gets thicker and thicker. And we were going to return to these models in later lessons to keep thinking about how sedimentary rock forms. Okay, now we're going to observe different types of rock, a sedimentary rock only. And so we know it's going to be made of smaller pieces of sediment. So this rock is formed of pieces of gravel and pieces of sand. So we're going to study these different types of rocks today. But the key concepts that I want you to get out of this lesson is 1, a sedimentary rock layer forms when sediment sinks and builds up in water, compacts under more sediment, and cements over time. And 2, over time, a rock layer becomes thicker as sediment continues to build up. So going back to Desert Rocks National Park, even though this place looks like it wouldn't change very much each day, we know that over thousands or millions of years, new rocks form. Okay, now your job for today is to do a little bit of research. I'll be attaching a book for you called the Fossil Hunter's Handbook. And you're going to be researching conglomerate rocks and sandstone rocks. These are 2 different types of sedimentary rocks. You're going to see what they are, how they're similar, how they're different, and then you're going to think what types of environments could these different rocks form in. So all of the instructions will be attached on the Google Classrooms. So good luck and happy working.